Welcome to my superstar panel. You know the drill by now. I'm going to ask them some questions, and then I'm going to open it up for you guys to ask them some questions. So, Dara, let's start with you. As Jason mentioned, this session is called What Customers Really, Really Want. How is AI deepening your understanding of what the Autodesk customer wants in 2025?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is really interesting is we're seeing AI is scaling content, but AI will always trail culture. And so what we're seeing our customers want is they want the AI additional horsepower, but they want to continue to be in control. So for example, one of our Autodesk, by the way, our software is used to design and make anything, whether it's buildings or tents or products like the cell phone some of you have in your hands, or movies and games that we all love. And one of our software we have is AI-powered visual effects software, Autodesk Flow Studio. Our customers want to have that additional horsepower, but they want to be the ones deciding what gets created. They don't want to give complete creative control. And I think that's what we're learning is AI is here to help, but we don't want to have AI in the driver's seat. We still want to be steering the wheel.
And I think we really want to dig into that balance over the course of the session, because it's easy to say, but a bit more complex to execute. So Frank, I want to come to you next. I've heard you say in the past that marketing sits at the intersection of culture and commerce. It really goes back to what Dara has just said. What does that mean to you right in this moment?
So, yeah, let me take one step back and I'll come right to that. This whole idea of what customers really want, the thing that gives me some comfort is that it hasn't changed over time. You can go through centuries and the core of it actually remains the same, which is they want people to help them move forward in life. Sometimes that's removing friction, sometimes that's adding joy to their life, sometimes that's creating community. That's the beauty of it. But what has changed, and I think I agree with Dara completely on this, is that you can analyze what people want in any given category. Ours happens to be payments. And you want to be important to people's payment experience in this instance, or in the category. But people also want to know, are you important in my life? And those are the brands that actually stand out, the ones that actually have real meaning. If you sit in that first category, in my opinion, you're a product, which is great, but you're subject to commoditization pretty quickly if you sit within that category. So we try to look at relevance through both lenses, through the category lens and the cultural lens.
Okay, and so that goes back to what I said about commerce and culture, that really important intersection.
Yes.
Rachel, I know that earlier this year, Adobe rolled out a suite of agents to help marketers. Talk to me a bit about how those agents are going to work alongside creatives, because so much of marketing campaigns and what makes an impact is that human intelligence and understanding of how we all tick.
Right. At Adobe, we think of it very much as human-centered. I know we think of agents there to amplify what marketers and creative teams can do, to help them build great experiences, not in any way to be like, oh, we're doing this for you, but really working together and orchestrating customer experiences, helping marketers find data insights, helping marketers figure out new audiences, and really building great content, great creative, and like I said, great customer experiences, so that when that customer is interacting with that brand, they feel like, yeah, that brand knows me, they get me, they're anticipating what I need. So to your point, they feel like they have a deeper connection with that brand.
And obviously, this all sounds great. There's like a huge scale up in the amount of content created, which we're going to come back to in a second. But what's sort of the risks or the challenge of some of this? And Frank, we'll come to you, that's keeping you up at night as we start to enter this AI-powered, or we're in this AI-powered marketing era.
Yeah, I mean, God, that's a long list.
Great, well, run us through it quickly.
Well, in the words of Public Enemy, don't believe the hype, right? So like, don't get caught in the hype cycle where you get confused about the rate of change and your ability to actually incorporate that change within your company. It requires infrastructure. It requires a change in thinking. It requires a change in processes. And so I think the first thing is have a little bit of humility about the pace of change that you can actually accommodate. I think the second thing that keeps me up is, it maybe gives me some encouragement, is that I think that you can automate just about anything you want to. You can go through all the workflows, and that's going to be fantastic, really exciting. But more, faster is not necessarily better. And in fact, I think we're going to hit the point of where you have the paradox of choice, where you have so much, taste is going to really matter. Curation is going to matter. Right. And so that keeps me up. And then the third thing is, I think one of the things that we all underestimating is the importance of brand. I think the brand becomes even more important, but it's no longer top of mind. It's going to be a brand that people actually really prefer and have some kind of loyalty to, maybe even advocate on behalf of, because you want to be in the prompt, or at least be in that conversation that someone's having with an agent or in the AI environment, so that they're asking for the brand to be a part of their experience.
And Dara, how do we ensure, if we're using these AI agents and LLMs are being trained on existing material, how do we make sure that we move into this new future whilst also maintaining diversity of thought and encouraging new ideas?
One of the things I like to say is to be a thought leader, you got to have some thoughts.
Correct.
I know, novel, right? In this era where things can be very generic, AI is raising the floor, but it's actually human ingenuity that's going to raise the ceiling. And I think one of the things that's really important is investing and training people, not just how to use the AI tools and you give it to them, but how do you not become a second-hand thinker? You need to be able to actually provide and put in a thought that is going to allow you to be differentiated and stand apart from your competition. So practically speaking, how I'm doing that at Autodesk is I've got an AI academy for all my marketers. So not only are we giving you these AI tools, and I want 100% of my marketers to be using them, but I want them to be proficient at how they use them, so that what they produce is not the same generic content that all our competitors who have access to the same AI tools are putting out. And I think that's what is critical in this era, is making sure that we are not cultivating second-hand thinkers, but first-hand thinkers who are truly creative. And when you pair creativity with AI fluency, I think that's where you become really unforgettable. Because yes, there are a lot of AI agents there, and folks are using AI agents, and I think we actually have a world where AI agents are talking to AI agents, and and it's all just getting lost in the noise, or as Frank said, the hype cycle. And we have a lot of content, but we have a lot of forgettable content. So to be unforgettable, you have to pair that innovation and that imagination with AI fluency.
So when you're hiring right now, this is a question to any of you, what things could someone say, a potential candidate say, that would make you think, wow, I have got to have this person on my team?
How they demonstrate sort of creativity and how they demonstrate innovation. So exactly what you said, like how are we making sure teams are being innovative? Are we encouraging them to think differently? And really, when you think about the customer, make sure you're coming up with great content. And that has to be a lot of human ingenuity, a lot of human creativity. That's really table stakes. So I always try to probe on, talk to me about sort of like your most creative idea, your most sort of innovative program that you developed, and talk to me about why. Because I think you want folks that kind of want to push the envelope in that respect.
Frank, I'd love to hear from you about a time when these new marketing technologies you feel have failed you at Visa, and what you learned from them. Because I think it's really important to talk about the successes, but we learn a lot about what didn't go right. And afterwards, Dara, Rachel, feel free to chime in with your experices.
Yeah, I mean, look, probably every day it's failed on some level, right?
Okay.
And so, we tried to do an ad recently. Mostly Gen AI kind of generated ad, an AI generated ad. It was fine. It's kind of like what Dara said, though. It's like it was forgettable. It lacked the emotional content. And I'm not saying that we won't ever get there. We might get there, by the way. But I think when you get to the idea of you want to make an emotional connection, it's not only do you have to have the human in the loop, I think it has to be human-driven. And by that I mean it's not using AI, it's working with AI and as a collaborator. And so what I'm finding is that the people who can actually do that the best are, I know this is a tech conference, but it's the English majors. It's the philosophy, it's the revenge of the English majors. That's what's going to happen right now.
There's hope for us all still then.
But they because it's not about one simple prompt. It's about a conversation and critical thinking and imagination and creativity. That's what's really going to get you to a better place. You're not going to have K-pop demon hunters by like putting in one prompt. It's not going to happen.
What happened with that advert then that you felt didn't work? Did you go back and remake it? Did you drop it? What happened next?
Shelved it.
Shelved it.
But we had another one that we did release. And so I don't know what the success ratio is going to be. What I do know is that I'm in a space now where there's some types of advertisement communications where pure AI-driven advertising can work, like a product-driven thing, or maybe it's a modification to something that's existing. But if I'm getting into the space where I actually want to move someone and actually make them feel something, it's unlikely to be purely AI-driven. We're working with AI to get to that point.
Yeah. Give me an example of when you feel like AI and humans work together to move someone in marketing the Autodesk.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a global company where we operate in over 120 countries. And I think, of course, one of the first use cases of AI was, hey, how does this help us with localization and helping us with scaling content globally? And we realized very quickly you could not remove the human review, right? Because there was definitely a misfire, right? Speaking to an architect in Tokyo, sounds very different than speaking to a creator in LA. And you can't just, you have to make sure not only are you personalizing, but that you have that consistency. Because I like to say personalization without consistency is chaos. And we don't want chaos. It's too messy. We don't like that. It's not like the cool Lola song. So we have to address that. So for us, one of the things that was important was saying, hey, we are going to use this custom AI tool that we had for our localization, but we have to put in human review. Because cultural nuance and context matters. And it's not completely captured by AI, especially in this, let's face it, polarized world that we live in. Even those of us who speak the same language, went to the same schools, read the same news, or maybe not, we might have different views on things. How much more when you're going and you're having a different global context? So that was one of the areas that we saw. Having that human review is really critical. And I think to Frank's point, especially when you go beyond product features, right? When you're starting to storytell, or you're starting to get someone to believe in it, that's really important. And the other thing that we did was we started having our marketers actually sharing use cases of how they're using the AI tools, and examples of not just wins, but failures, right? And starting to normalize that. Like, oh, wow, look at this fail. Let's celebrate when the AI bot that I made hallucinated, right? And how do we plan for that, and how do we address that? And I think normalizing that is really important to get to that next level of excellence.
I want to talk about ethics and safety for a second. It's something that's been raised over the past day or so. Rachel, how can you assure Adobe clients that their data is safe with you in this new era?
So a couple of things as we think about sort of data and AI and usage and training. The data is critical. I think what underpins all of the conversations about what are you building for customers, what are the experiences of the ads is, I think they are that much better if you're building it on the right data foundation. If you have brought together all the customer inputs, if you're getting the right customer signals, I think it becomes easier then to make sure that you're building and designing, whether it's the right content or the right creative, because you have those customer signals. So I think that's critical, making sure you have the right data foundation. But then you have to sort of, every company has to ask themselves, okay, then who has access to that data? How do we understand that data? And then I think in terms of AI training, like at Adobe, what we think about, and we actually have a team, it's an AI ethics team that reviews every AI feature that we release to make sure that it is being trained, it's being trained responsibly, that we're working bias out of the system, because that matters deeply.
And if it's not working responsibly, what happens? It gets cut? It's cut. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Frank, I know that Visa has been using AI to really segment audience across different demographic lines. What are your learnings from that? I'm particularly interested in age demographics. What are you learning in terms of how consumers engage with you across different generations?
Well, a couple things. One, that some of the traditional demographic categories don't really segment very well in terms of people's behaviors, mindset, and expectations. You can go across age, gender, income, geographic location, ethnicity, and that sometimes gives you a proxy on how people think and behave, but increasingly it's not a good proxy. And so what we're finding is that you'll start to see things like female solo travel pop up and they'll cross all those demographic categories in ways that are incredibly surprising, and it'll generate significant amounts of income for us. So that's the first thing we're seeing. But there is one trend. We did a recent study with on Gen Alpha, and every generation is different, right? Because in every generation will say we are the special ones. But what makes a generation special is that their coming of age experiences, the historical events that happen when they're coming of age, define who they are. And we think from the study that this generation is probably going to be the one most focused on optimizing their life.
And Gen Alpha, just to clarify, is born in 2010 up until the present day. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so, and we think they're focused on this idea of optimizing their life. They're like a dashboard generation. Video gaming is the center of gravity for them. And so that whole dashboard effect of monitoring what is working for me and what's not, we think is going to change a lot. Less scrolling, much more kind of focused direction, more in tune with curation, as opposed to like just taking on the content and saying this is a great experience. And so we're starting to tune into that because even though that's Gen Alpha, and that's not the heart of our revenue at this point, we think that sentiment, that mindset, and those expectations is going to go across all the generations.
And what does that then, if we're taking the Gen Alpha example, what does that mean for Visa and the way you bring products to market or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think it's how we communicate with people. Instead of, so one, don't inundate them with information.
Yeah.
Two, give them the ability to find the information through the data that they use, this dashboard. Three, this is the heart of video gaming, and it's kind of weird because video gaming's been around a long time, and these ideas of video gaming have been at the heart of culture, but in this generation, I think it's going to really manifest itself in a different way. This idea of hero manifestation, I'm the hero of the story, I think it's going to be really important. And to make someone the hero of the story, you have to give them space to explore, and space to discover, and space to connect, and even space to make mistakes. Our job is to make sure they don't careen off the rails, and if they're going to make a payment, that they actually that is secure and is free of fraud.
Dara, I've got one final question for you, and then I'll open it up. So get thinking of your questions. What does all of this mean for agencies, and what does a successful agency partnership look like for you at Autodesk right now?
I think that's an excellent question, and I think what this means for agencies are you really have to demonstrate your value in a way that is concrete and tangible, because now with AI, things can be done at scale. And I love what Frank said, more is not necessarily better. So often, I think in the past, a lot of people turn to agencies for either creative thinking to help augment your creative thinking, or to help pick up the load that your internal team couldn't do. So now I think increasingly with AI, it's a little less around picking up the load that your internal team couldn't do, because now you can use AI tools to get that scale more efficiently, some cases, than even with agencies. So that creativity piece is so key. And I think one of the things that agencies have to do now more than ever is help brands figure out how to cut through the noise in an area where discovery has shifted. No longer are we controlling the first impression anyone has of our brands, right? That is being decided by AI agents. All of a sudden, earned media is that much more important. Brand is more important. Social media is more important. Guess what? Those reviews people put are important. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a B2B tech CEO, and he said, Dara, what you said to me, now every brand is a consumer brand. I said, bing! That's the world we're living in now. And so as an agency, you have to be able to bring that value of helping every brand and every business operate in a new world, right, where essentially all of that is happening and discovery has shifted so quickly and is constantly shifting. The sand is moving beyond your feet. So as an agency, you got to bring creativity, and you got to help us figure out how to be agile and stay agile. And by the way, like I always say, yesterday's price is not today's price. So things are constantly changing, and as an agency, you got to be ahead of that.
What do you mean by yesterday's price is not today's price?
I mean, what a customer accepted from you yesterday is not what they're going to accept from you today. So if you want to continue to increase the value that you're driving and providing for your customers, you have to keep raising the game. And it keeps getting higher. And guess what? Everyone else is raising the game too. So you can't just raise the game like everybody else. To get that competitive edge and have that competitive advantage, you have got to be offering something that's truly unforgettable.
OK, that's very clear. Thank you. Any questions for our esteemed panel? Yes. Could we get a microphone to this lady in the front row? And please tell us your name, your company, and your title.
I will try to not totally fangirl over Dara, but I've been a longtime follower of yours, and I'm Julie Morris, and thrilled to get to hear from you today and learn from you. So you've been the face of as the CMO of Autodesk. And I'm just curious to think, like you just touched on this point of how crucial it is that we see ourselves as a consumer-facing brand. Like we are that. And that's how we win trust, and that's how we win when it matters. So have you gotten any pushback internally? Do they see the value of you being the face, part of, like, you've got the CEO who's the face of the brand, and then there's you. Do they get it? Do they appreciate it? Has it been helpful?
So I am so fortunate because our CEO was CMO before he became CEO. So he really understands marketing. And I think not everyone has that benefit, especially in technology. I always joke with him, because I'm like, Andrew, we both went to Stanford, but I got an MBA and you got a PhD. So we are approaching marketing from very different perspectives, but he understands the value. So I've been fortunate to have that. And the other thing I would say is, as a marketer, especially if you're a marketing leader, before you take the job, because I always say CMO jobs come in different flavors, I think it's very important to be clear on what the business wants and what you are going to provide, and making sure that there is, that those two things align. Because if what you are going to provide and the way you think is not what the leadership thinks, then you're going to just be fighting a battle instead of getting the job done. And I'm in fighting battles that push the business forward and help us deliver success. So that, I think for me, it's been about having that alignment with my CEO. I was very clear coming in, and he was very clear. And so we have that alignment to go forward. And then, of course, nothing works like results. I always say the best team building is results and winning. And, as we've gone more direct to our customer, and we just had our last earnings where we increased revenue 17% year over year, right? And that is driven by the momentum that's coming through the Autodesk store and Autodesk.com, and a lot of that has to do with the work we're doing from a marketing standpoint. So when you are driving results and having business impact, you're backing up the hypothesis and the theory you're bringing to the table.
Any other questions? Graham, let's go to you. Tell us where you're from. Yep, this gentleman here. Yep, in the baseball cap.
Hi, thank you guys so much. My name is Graham North. I'm with a creative shop called Nice and Frank. We're an honest creative agency in an industry that isn't always at it. What I wanted to ask about, though, was when you were talking about the role of agencies, there's the creativity side, which is a little bit, it's probably like the furthest away in terms of where AI is for changing things. But the other bit of the agency world is just the mirror that provides, kind of like the honest assessment of not drinking the Kool-Aid. And I'm curious to your guys' thoughts on where are you looking for in the next chapter in terms of that honest assessment from the outside?
Rachel or Frank, feel free to.
You go.
I think that I'm a huge believer in making sure that you're having, if you're working, whether you're working with an agency, whether you're working with a partner, but you have to start with that, right? You have to start with what are we trying to accomplish? What do you see? What are we trying to achieve for customers? I think that's critical. And if you start from there, then everything after that, I'm not going to say it's like perfectly easy, but it will be much easier as long as you're aligned and there's agreement. And it starts with that honest assessment. I like that.
Yeah, and I'll add, look, in some level, we're looking for the same thing we've always been looking for. We're telling stories, we're designing experiences, we're trying to create expectations, we're trying to build memories, we're trying to build relationships, but we need partners who are on the leading edge of how you do that. And so as storytelling continues to evolve, you're in the building, you start to get trapped in your own logic, and everything starts, people will kind of, this self-reinforcing mechanism will lead you down to dead ends. Our agencies, the best agencies are the ones that are leading innovation. They push us, but they also understand our business. Because at the end of the day, the last thing we need is someone who comes in and says, I've got AI figured out for you, but there's no business outcome. It's like, that's not helpful to me, you know? Or they like, I got this great storytelling device, but there's no business outcome. And so that collaboration in terms of business outcomes, but still doing it across stories and experiences and expectations and memories and relationships is key.
Let's take a final question from this gentleman just here at the front.
Yeah, Dominic with Forge Global, trade private company shares. 2 parts. One is you didn't really talk about the economics. Dara touched on it a bit, but marketing budgets traditionally are the first to go and come back during the ebbs and flows of the economic cycles. So I'd like your thoughts on that. And then one word, Cracker Barrel.
Okay, I'll take the easy one of marketing budgets ebbing and flowing. I think one of the things that I always have on my marketing plan is plan for the unexpected. Right? There's one thing that we know, and that is something unexpected is going to happen. Whether it's all of a sudden now we're not just talking about agents, but we're talking about MCPs. So it's like something new is always going to come up. How do we plan for that, and how are we ready for that? And I think as a marketer, I'm constantly having my team do this exercise of what would you do if you had to divest, and what would you do if you had to invest? So we're ready. So whenever people come to us, we just go pick it off our shelf. We were ready. We aren't having to make decisions that are not strategic and are tactical, and then it feels super chaotic because we're prepared. So I think as a marketer, the reality is, when economic things move, your budgets might get impacted. And so being prepared for that and constantly saying, what would I invest in, what would I divest in, is a good way to just kind of stay ahead of the curve.
And then Frank and Rachel, you've each got 30 seconds to tell us your reaction to the Cracker Barrel situation.
Oh, you're gonna label me with that one. Okay. So I'll give you a 20-second version of that. That's an easy one for me. It's easy to criticize when you're on the outside, but I can see the logic of what they were trying to do in trying to modernize it. But I think the fundamental mistake is that any brand needs to know what its brand ethos is and what their consumers value in that brand. They could have studied KFC, because there was a big conversation around KFC whether to get rid of the kernel back at the time. And what they realized is that even though there was some noise around the kernel, it's the thing that actually created the roots for that particular brand. And so I think Cracker Barrel probably jumped ahead of that. Design's fine, you can criticize it, et cetera, but that the man in the chair next to the Cracker Barrel brought back the memories that people were seeking. It's that nostalgic thing that they wanted to have, and I think they're back on the right path on that now.
Rachel?
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. It's the trade-off between, do you know who are your customers? Who are you trying to appeal to? If you're looking for new customers, what of the brand do you bring to that new audience? And I think it's always a tough call. We're always having those conversations internally whenever a brand is thinking about how they want to change. But you always have to really ask yourself, who are our customers? The ones who love us, the ones who know us, and then the ones we may want to be new to, but what do we want to keep and what do we want to bring in?
Frank, 30 seconds. I can see you want to add something.
30 seconds on the budget, because not that I've got it solved. I do not have it solved. But I do think there's going to be a shift, because a lot of what we're talking about requires infrastructure. So if you're moving to the agentic web, the agentic web is not simple SEO or in page rankings. It's now data structures. It's now kind of creating agents that are actually going to intersect, with other agents. It's B to AI, business to AI, and that's a completely different investment that's going to be required, even to do it the right way. And so some of those investments are not going to be discretionary, and I think they're going to be foundational. And so I do think we're going to see a shift in how some of the parts of the marketing budgets are going to be viewed.
Right. I think one of the things I would say about budgets, the biggest thing you can do is have your data ready. Like, what did you achieve with your marketing, and do you know it, and have you shared it? Because sometimes there's what I think of as invisible marketing, where you did a great job, but you didn't share it, you didn't quantify it, and then nobody knows about it. So it's easy to cut.
Okay, we do have to stop there, but great question from the gentleman in the front. Thank you. We could have gone on for much longer on that subject. Dara, Rachel, and Frank, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you backstage.